President Mark and fellow Rotarians, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. So our speaker, as you know, is Anya Satyanand. And Anya is someone who's very qualified to speak about issues involving youth development. She's the daughter of Anand and Susan, and we thank her very much for coming to speak to us at such late notice. Anya she speaks to us as the Chief Executive of Rotary, which is the national peak body for youth development. It's the sector body which represents about 1,000 people and organisations doing youth work around the country. Anya has worked at local, international and international level to progress and promote positive youth development in practice and policy. Prior to this work, Anya taught media studies in London and more recently at Wellington High School. And it was at Wellington High that she was also deputy principal for about 3 years. Her LinkedIn profile tells us that over the last 15 years, my focus has been on enabling the best outcomes for all young people. I have a big commitment to and vision for interdisciplinary, cross-sectoral approaches to youth development. I'm especially interested in strengths-based, innovative, restorative and ethical approaches to working with young people. I bring a fierce belief that we've all got to work together to help our young people to reach the stars that belong to us. So Anya, we're really looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Tuhia ki te rangi, tuhia ki te whenua, tuhia ki te ngākau o te tangata. Ko te mea nui, ko te aroha. Te hei mauri ora. Ngā rangatira, tēnā koutou katoa. It's a great privilege and honour to be speaking to you guys today. I am, however, I just want to put a caveat around my introduction, which is that I am replacing a much more wonderful and inspiring speaker, Kirsten Smith, who's Chief Executive at Evolve Youth Service here in Wellington. I know that she's really committed to coming along and talking to you about what youth development looks like from her perspective as the Chief Executive of Evolve. But I will attempt to fill the space that she's left as she takes care of her staff, who are in turn taking care of a bunch of young people who are, doing it tough in Wellington with all of the shakes that we've been having. And do my best to deliver something that is useful and hopefully thought-provoking to all of you. Thank you so much also for that lovely introduction. I want to begin by acknowledging Rotary and the priority and aspiration that you are all working toward within this organisation and in association with each other. The tagline, serving humanity, I thought I would take as the kind of the overall structure for my kōrero to all of you. I want to just explain the tauparapara that I began with. Is anyone familiar with that that kind of invocation or blessing that I began? I'll just explain it. So it's a really lovely one, and it's one that I chose because of the aspiration that Rotary works towards, which is about serving humanity. So it says, write it on the sky, write it on the land, write it in the hearts of the people. What is the most important thing? It is love. And so it is in love that I'm coming to share some thoughts with you, to connect in with what it is that you guys are all about, and to tell you some stories about youth development and my work at Rotary. So, Rotary. As the beautiful introduction stated, I do have a background in secondary education and worked for a lot of years at a school that is pretty extraordinary here in Wellington High School. and my work now connects in with that, with that work of working in a secondary school, supporting young people to kind of aspire greatly and to work towards achieving everything that they dream of achieving in order to set them up on a good path to the future. And my work now is kind of the same thing, but just in a different way. So I work for Ara Taiohi, the peak body for youth development. Ara is a word signifying pathway or progress. And it's also the word that signifies the guiding edge in a piece of weaving. So it's the piece of flax that gives form and function and beauty to the finished piece, whether it be a korowai or a sturdy food basket. And taiohi is the literal word for young person. So my organisation's name then is Ara Taiohi, the pathway to or from young people. I thought I'd in my discussion, I'd cover off three different, or hopefully answer three different questions. Firstly, who is Ara Taiohi and what it is that we do? And then secondly, what is youth development and why is it important? And thirdly, I'd just like to touch briefly on some of the challenges that youth development, young people and people working with young people are facing at the moment in Aotearoa. So, firstly, what is youth development? Well, to put it in some context, youth development at an international level looks like this. It looks like this posed as a question. 2.8 billion of our world population currently is under the age of 26. That's almost 40% of the world's population. And at an international level, the question that statistic puts to us all is actually, how do we, out of that, and also understanding that demographic is unequally spread across the world. So like in New Zealand, we have an ageing population, but elsewhere we have things which are unpleasantly named a youth bulge. So a lot of the global south have youth populations which far outstrip their older working people. So the question for me then about what is youth development, it's how well we rise to the challenge that this statistic faces us with. Sitting alongside that, at a national level in Aotearoa, we are faced by some pretty compelling evidence that the growth in the division between those who have and those who don't have is growing, and that's impacting disproportionately on our young people. Kirsten from Evolve will tell you about some of the work that Evolve and some other not-for-profits around Wellington have been doing in supporting homeless young people in Wellington Central. And she'll tell you the story of what that actually looks like on the ground in Wellington. But I think that what is clear from all of the evidence at both national, regional, local and international level is that actually young people are experiencing a world that is tipped in favour of the few, not the many. And so when young people consider their future and look out to the world, they're perceiving something that looks a little bit like this. An uneven playing field, a playing field that advantages some, not all. So I want to talk about how youth development, the youth development sector, fits into these kind of wider contextual factors. So youth development is a practice, it's a way of working with young people. Now, in schools, obviously, who work with young people, youth development happens in schools' finest moments. It doesn't happen consistently. It happens when schools are really humming and when there's a strong sense of a shared values base, and academic achievement is something that is held in the hearts of all the kids, all the teachers, all the school leaders. And in times of stress and tension in schools, it doesn't necessarily happen. So youth development is about perceiving young people in terms of their strengths, and perceiving young people in terms of how they connect into the wider fabric of society. So actually it's about our society as a whole. Let me just find it. So putting young people at the centre is what good youth development practice looks like. And it means actually considering them in relation to each of these spheres. So yep, they're part of their whānau and their family. They're defined also within their community and how it is that they're making a contribution to our community. One of the awesome things about young people in New Zealand is that actually they are the one demographic who are contributing more and more as volunteers across the country. That is that has come out of consecutive surveys and research by Volunteering New Zealand, is that young people are actually the fastest growing demographic making a contribution in a voluntary sense to our communities. Young people are defined by their relationships with their peers, and young people are also defined in relation to how they're achieving and working and kind of engaged in the sphere of school training and work. So youth development looks like this. It means putting young people at the centre, seeing them in terms of their strengths, understanding the big picture that sits behind all of them. It means engaging with young people and actually giving them the chance to determine the things that impact upon them. It means building quality relationships with them, and it means using good information to inform whatever programs, practices that an organisation or a service might put in place. So organisations who are doing this, services, programs who are doing these things, are part of the youth development sector. Mentoring is a really, really good example of really good youth development practice. So just before I came here, I was chatting to a person who runs a youth development program up in Paeroa, and she showed me a bunch of photos of this amazing mural that they have done as part of their work with young people. So a group of young people from the school have designed and then painted up this mural. Really cool project, which I think has, according to this person, has given the young people a whole sense of identity and ownership and a feeling of being valued and worth and acknowledged within their community in a visual way. So Arataiahi then is working to connect the youth development sector, to raise the standard of practice across the youth development sector, to champion youth development as a way of working with young people, and to promote sustainability. So I just wanted to finish by clicking through these. Please don't get distracted by all of the visual information that's coming to you. I just wanted to finish by sharing some of the challenges that our sector is facing. Now, I know I worked in a school for a long time, and I absolutely think that education doesn't necessarily consider itself part of the youth development sector, but actually the challenge of inspiring, supporting and challenging our young people to take up hopeful, connected, participating positions as members of our society and our democracy and our economy is something that rests with all of us, whether we're working in a school, in a youth justice facility, as a mental health nurse, as a grandparent. Actually, the future of our country really, really depends on how well we meet that challenge. And so some of the challenges that the youth development sector faces is actually that fragmentation, that actually we don't consider the connections between education, justice, health, and kind of awesome organisations like the YMCA, Challenge 2000, Evolve. There's disconnects that happen there. There are issues around resourcing in our sector as well. One of the kind of current priorities that government are following at the moment is around social investment, which means that often preventative, positive youth development programs are being overlooked as investment is made in our young people who are struggling the most. And that is it's problematic for the preventative programs, because actually we need it all. We need all of those programs in place for young people. And the final challenge is one around super diversity, because actually one of the amazing strengths of our young people, and one of the super exciting things about young people in New Zealand, is that over the next 20 years, the 20% of our population who are between 12 and 24 will become super diverse at a faster rate than any other demographic within our overall population. And that is awesome. That is one of the things that gives me great hope for the future, that our young people are already finding ways to walk in many worlds. So we have a really amazing group of young people, particularly up in Auckland, from migrant and refugee backgrounds, who are blazing all sorts of thought trails around what youth development looks like for young people who weren't born here, or who are the 1.5 generation, or who, like me, are third generation New Zealanders. So what does that look like? I think that we can ask them some of the questions to our, some of the answers to our questions about what the future of our super diverse nation looks like. And it also poses some challenges to our youth development sector. How do we become more culturally competent and culturally capable when we're looking at taking care of young people who don't necessarily fit the moulds of 20 years ago or 30 years ago? So I guess I'm going to leave you with a final challenge, which is I think that one of the big voids in contemporary discussion at the moment is the space between generations. So the space between the under 25-year-olds who voted overwhelmingly for Hillary Clinton in the States. There are some really awesome infographics which show that there were only 2 states where Donald Trump would have won had voting been left to the under 25s. Similarly, with Brexit, young people overwhelmingly voted to remain in the European Union. And it troubles me, and I think it should trouble all of us, that there are some pretty big disconnects in the way that our young people are brought into the conversation and are listened to with regard to political discussion, and the issues that will shape the future of our country and the shape of the world going forward. I think opening up spaces for young people to engage in discussion and discourse and conversation around some of these issues is really needed. And I think within families, within communities, we should deliberately and intentionally open those sorts of spaces for discussion up. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, kia ora koutou katoa.
Thank you, Anya. Anya, my apologies, is very happy to take some questions, if there are any.
I pose a question about my confusion of what government's been doing in this area. The merging of the Ministry of Youth Development into the Ministry of Social Development. What's happening? Is government pulling back? Is it becoming more policy-oriented? What's it actually doing?
That's a really interesting question. I can do my best to kind of give you my perspective on it, which is not, it's obviously a kind of a community sector perspective from the outside looking in. So the Ministry of Youth Development has been part of the Ministry of Social Development for some time, and the youth policy arm of the Ministry of Youth Development has been part of the general wider social development policy kind of work. Currently the Ministry of Youth Development is sitting alongside community investment, but my understanding is in the massive kind of redesign of MSD into future MSD and Oranga Tamariki, that Ministry of Youth Development will go into future MSD. And that poses some really big questions, I think, around how youth development as a philosophy, as I've kind of explained, a strengths-based way of working with young people that actually puts at the centre the voice of young people, you know, being given the ability to participate in decision making that affects them. I feel worried about the Ministry of Youth Development, who are kind of the trailblazers and thought leaders in government using that philosophy. The disconnect between Oranga Tamariki and the Ministry of Youth Development is, I think there's a big question mark over that. In terms of the Ministry of Youth Development and the changes that have happened there over the last year, so the Minister announced in November last year that that the Ministry of Youth Development would be reduced in size, and their role was shifting from kind of that thought leadership role within the wider context of and that kind of ability to convene conversations across ministries, so across education, health, justice, which has been a really important function that they've served actually, is to kind of start a conversation that breaks down some of those silos between those different ways of working with young people. So the changes at the Ministry of Youth Development have sort of reduced their ability and capacity to engage at that level. And they have been tasked with increasing the number of youth development opportunities to young people across New Zealand, which basically means that they're kind of very engaged at the contract management end, and they're trying to increase the number of opportunities, whatever that means. Yes.
Any further questions? Yes, there is, John.
Thank you. I'm just interested in the program. I mean, how does the organisation work? It was probably in those slides that you skipped over. But what are the deliverables, the specific deliverables?
What a lovely question. I could talk until the cows come home about this, so I'll try and keep it brief. So we're working at two different, across several different work streams, but two projects which I'll tell you about, which kind of articulate the deliverables a little bit more. So we've had a set of strategic priorities that were set by sector leaders. So the leaders of organisations like, for example, the Graham Dingle Foundation, Youthtown, Youthline, YMCA Auckland, Duke of Edinburgh. There have been a whole lot of sector leaders who have come together and determined that they are keen for Aotearoa to map the sector, to define a sector identity for the youth development sector, and to set and maintain and raise sector standards for youth development organisations. So in line with that, we are prototyping a sector mapping app with Cognition Education, which basically means that our membership database is transformed into a really smart tool to see exactly where services and programs are available, which young people they are designed to serve and are serving, and what are the changed outcomes for those young people. So pulling out educational data from the ministry's website, pulling out some kind of wellbeing data around how the health of young people is positively affected by youth development programs and services. So that's one thing, and then we've also, as part of our work to set sector standards for organisations, we are working to develop an accreditation tool for youth development organisations to really assist sector leaders with the process of that design, implementation, evaluation kind of process, to support them to do really good self-review, and to provide also alongside that really awesome tools for the youth development sector leaders to engage with and therefore improve the quality of services to young people, which is our kind of end goal. But lots of other things as well, like I say.
Thank you, Anya. Thank you very much. So in Anya's very inspiring talk to us today, I was most interested in the fact that almost 40% of the population are young people, and the point that Anya made right at the end, the importance, the huge importance of those young people being involved in political conversations, and the impact that that voice has had in some key political situations that you've talked about across the world in recent times. So really most important to hear that. Thank you. Anya challenged us to listen to and find ways of involving young people to a greater extent in discussion. I really liked the definition that you brought about youth development, where you talked about young people being perceived in terms of their strengths and putting young people at the centre. So absolutely key for a key message and something that we should all take away. So Anya, thank you very much. It was a wonderful presentation. Thank you. I've got a very small gift there for you.
Thanks, Anya. Members with interesting notices.
I hope it's interesting. Wednesday at 4 o'clock is a first serious session about the forest that we're planting and a look at some of the big work that's going to be needed over the next 5 years. And at the moment we have close to about 20, a good number from this club and also from Forest and Bird and from other agencies, conservation volunteers right in behind it. There are still places for people to take part. We're using a decision support software in one of the university labs, which is computer labs, fortunately open in the railway station. So if there are people who haven't been hooked into this so far, catch me today. It'll be a fast and furious collecting of ideas about how to make this really work. It's off to a good start, a really strong start, with the Stout Trust backing it really thoroughly, as is the head office for conservation volunteers in Australia, and they're a $50 million turnover outfit now over there. So I hope a few more might catch me and say you're going to come.
Thanks, Richard.
Guess what? You will have received an email last week about the Jumbo Tennis Tournament beginning of March next year. This is another plug, please, to identify teams to participate in the tournament. We're looking for 48 teams, and really we want to try and get as many on board by Christmas as possible. You've got all the information in that email. If you need any more information or have any problems with the email, please either Rebecca or myself come and we'll help you out. But think about the organisations you work for, your suppliers, friends, corporates. It's a great day, $500 plus GST for the team, and that's everything included. Most of you I know have been involved in one way or another, so you know how good it is. What we need to do is we need to expand it out and make this the biggest fundraising effort for the club in 2017. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Some of you may have come over the hill in the weekend to Toast Martinborough, and if so, you would have been reminded about the wonderful wines that Waranga has. So my very quick plug is for the Winemakers Lunch at the White Swan in Greytown on December the 10th. Now we haven't had a lot of registrations for this, and I don't know whether that's because it's something that you have just not got around to registering for yet. Maybe you haven't gone home to talk to your partners about it, but I'd really encourage you to register if you're going to, please, because there is a cut-off date. I'm just not sure exactly what it is now, but it'll be coming up very soon, whereby the White Swan do need to know numbers or we'll have to cancel it. So December the 10th at lunchtime, it's a Saturday, you can travel by train, and it should be a really fun day, so I do hope that you come along. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia. Next slide, please, Patrick. Speakers in advance, we've postponed, or the District Governor, Martin Garcia, clearly wasn't coming last week. So he's postponed until February. Next week, we've got Eureka, an outstanding success story. Something the club should be proud of. It's got right into NCEA curriculum. It's an amazing journey we are on with it. And the team will cover where we're at and where we're going. A number of us will be away next week up in Auckland with the Rotary Club of Auckland, meeting Sydney and Melbourne, talking about what centennial project between the 4 clubs we want. If you haven't read them, they're on the website. We, tomorrow night, as a club board, will have a look and work out where we want to take it to, noting that we'll be in Auckland next week. But they're all amazing projects, from ours, which is providing potable water to every child in the Pacific, Melbourne's Eliminate Dengue in the Pacific, Sydney's rotavirus vaccination program, 6 countries in the Pacific, or Auckland, temporary mobile container homes for emergency relief. All of them noble. Now we have to work out where we put our resources against those. 5th of December, a rescheduled, thanks Lady Susan, Judge Andrew Beecroft reprogrammed or rescheduled for the 5th of December. Includes AGM, which I've got to beat 48 seconds from last year. And the 12th of December, the Christmas lunch with Jen Little's choir. Please register for the Christmas lunch. Next one, please. Question for, I'm going to ask for a show of hands. We're closed 19th, 26th of December, then 2nd and 9th of January. We're back on the 16th of January. Then 23rd of January is the Wellington anniversary, and then 31st of January is possible. Bill English, Lady Susan?
I'm hoping for 24th of January.
The 24th.
On the 24th.
So the question for the club is, do we want the 16th of January one or not? So could I have a show of hands who would want to come on 16th of January? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Thank you. I think I'll take out of that because it's you can see it's we have a problem with the Rotary International Constitution, but we'll work our way through that. Okay, next one, please. Forest at the Heart of Wellington, which Richard just covered, this Wednesday 4 to 6. Please come along if you've got the time. Other clubs, Karori, breakfast on the 29th, and the golf tournament on the 1st, and then, as you heard with Gillian, the Wairarapa Winemakers Lunch on the 10th of December. Next slide, and I'll jump over those because they're all for next year, but we'll make sure they're in the newsletter. Next, I think that's the end. In closing, this week in history, and as a good link as we leave, in 1980, there was a 7.2 magnitude earthquake in southern Italy which killed 3,000. Please do reflect that this isn't over, that we have another year of aftershocks. People will be rattled, and it is a 30% chance that one could be bigger than what we've had now. Please do make sure you and your families are ready, and do provide support to each other where you can, because it is a long way to go with any particular earthquake. So I do encourage you, please, to look after each other, but do be prepared. See you when we can in the next few weeks, and don't forget our theme is Rotary Serving Humanity. Go out and make a difference. Thank you.